Hey everyone, Matt Stevens here with Module 10. Just wanted to go over this module helping students understand their learning norms. So let's dive into it. First of all, let's talk about the 10 norms that were from the resources. I kind of broke them down into two sets of twos here as we look through these, but a few things I wanted to kind of point out before we even get going is that these 10 learning norms are more of an expectation students should have of their teachers in school. It's our job as educators to educate and educational leaders to help our students grow at all times. Looking at these imperatives is sometimes more important than looking at test scores. So finally, high expectations go both ways. We must keep our students engaged. So the first one we're going to take a look at is relationships and relevance. I know we talk about this a lot at my school, and I know probably a lot of you do as well, but really getting to know our students and building relationships through understanding their interests. Maybe that's sports, maybe that's agriculture, whatever that may be, but getting to know them and also knowing that students are not a number. And then also teaching relationship skills to our students as we build them with them. The next one is relevance, is knowing that our students want to know if this is relevant to them. All right, is this relevant to the student's interests? Are we covering things that make them interested? And then is this relating to the world that they will live in? We got to remember our world is a little bit different than what theirs is going to look like. So we just need to make sure that relevance is there. The next is time and timing. You can look at the time that we need to look at is, are we staying on pace? But whose pace is it? Are we trying to force it, or are we giving them time to have deep thoughts versus broad thoughts? And then timing. Are students learning in their own ways? And we need to look at the sequence of how we teach, and we need to look at their learning patterns, and we need to figure out that timing on what is the best way for each student to learn, and that's something they need to keep us accountable for as well. Next up is play versus practice, and I always have a rough time with this one because I'm being the coaching background a little bit, but looking at practice is that, do we just move on to something new all the time? Or do we realize that, hey, we don't have mastery in a certain content area and we need to work on those skills that are lacking? And then the other one is play, performance versus exploring. Now, we always want to, keep learning and keep performing, but also we want them to explore on a content area. We want them to explore different ideas that they may have over something that we have taught them, and then give them the opportunity to try different things through that time. Next up is choice versus authenticity. You can see that we want to make sure that, are all students on the same path? We don't have to get them on the same path. I think it's important that we give them a choice on their learning and give them a choice on how they learn. Okay, like they need to have a little bit of control on the direction of their learning. And I know I try to do this with my students as much as possible. Give them a little say in what they're doing, then you tend to find out that they have a lot more buy-in than what they had previously. Talking about authenticity, we don't want our students to be cookie cutter, and we don't want them to be a cog in the machine. We want them to thrive, to be an individual. And I think, self-advocacy and really pushing those things. And I think that they really want to know that their work is looked at as significant by others. Okay. They want to know that the things that they've done and worked for is looked at as significant by other people, especially their peers and especially their parents. Challenge and application. This is one of the last two we're going to talk about, but talking about challenge, is the student being challenged, or is it just something that's really easy for them? I know it's a struggle for me when I have my advanced classes because sometimes there's a very mixed group of kids in there. But we actually need to hold them to a meaningful standard, which is going to really push them in the real world scenarios. And that's when we can get into application, is that, are we talking about things that are theoretical or versus a real world scenario? And I actually looked at another video off after the one on the resource, and it talked about how the kids that they work with found real world applications, which in turn their school was giving them credit for those things. And I find that amazing that some places have the ability to do that. And I wish we would start that at my school as well. Just a little bit kind of talking about, some of the final thoughts I had. I said, when looking at student norms, many times students don't understand they are standards they should have for their learning. These 10, even though may seem simple, are some that are not a lot of students think about. I hope students will use these norms to become better engaged and more productive learners. And I got this, like I said, off of another video. I think really looking at keeping students engaged and for them to be productive learners instead of just learners is something that we really got to take into account when we look at our professional norms as educators. The next thing, we got our resources, of course, and then after that, the correlation, our standard correlation, relevance, and reflection. I really got a lot out of this module as far as learning about, and just put the last two modules together when it comes to professional norms and norms. Just like knowing that kids and all groups that you're going to be encountered with have professional norms, that they have groups that they hang out with that all have different norms. And I think, the reflection that I have on this is that as a future leader, I really need to understand that any type of professional norm that I set up within my educational setting or even my life is going to affect not just necessarily the people that I have, involved with me on a daily basis, but could affect, a couple steps out from that. And I think, when you're looking at making norms, that you really got to set a tone for ethical type norms, that you're looking at the longevity and the amount of people that you can affect by the norms that you're setting up. And also you got to look at the norms that they have that they want to achieve by using your education that you're putting forward. So when I look at this module itself is just learning about students and, the fact that they have things that they should expect from us was a really great learning opportunity for me. And I look forward to the next one. So I hope you all have a good night and good luck on module 10. If you need anything, feel free to shoot me a note below. And I know we're going to be looking at each other's work. So I look forward to hearing from you.